The maid. The first time Vanessa handed me a laundry basket and said these need to be folded before dinner, I actually looked around the room to see who she was talking to. It couldn't be me. I was Daniel Whitfield. I owned this house. My name was on the deed, on the mortgage I'd paid off 11 years ago, on the mailbox out front that my late wife Carol had painted with little sunflowers the summer before she died. But Vanessa wasn't looking at anyone else. She was looking dead at me, eyebrows raised, basket held out like an offering I was expected to accept. "I've got a golf game at 2, I said, which was a lie. I don't play golf. I just needed a reason to walk away before I said something I'd regret in my own kitchen. It was 6 weeks into the arrangement. 6 weeks since my son Marcus called me on a Tuesday night, voice tight with something between embarrassment and desperation, and asked if he and his family could move in just for a little while. His construction company had lost its biggest contract. The rental market in our town had gone insane. His wife Vanessa was 7 months pregnant with their second child, and their toddler Emma needed stability, not a series of extended stay motels. Of course I said yes. What kind of father says no to that? I had 4 empty bedrooms in a house built for a family of 4 that had shrunk down to a family of 1 after Carol passed. I had space, I had time, and God knows I had missed the sound of a child's feet on my stairs. I did not expect that within 2 months, I would become unpaid staff in my own home. It started small, the way these things always do. Vanessa asking if I could keep an eye on the dishwasher timing since she didn't trust the cycle. Vanessa mentioning, almost offhand, that she preferred the towels folded in thirds, not half, and could I redo the ones in the hall closet. Vanessa leaving her grocery list on the kitchen counter with a little heart drawn next to eggs, like I was her assistant and not a 68-year-old man who used to run a 14-person accounting firm. I told myself I was being generous. I told myself that a pregnant woman with a toddler underfoot deserved some grace, that Marcus was working himself ragged trying to land new contracts, that this was temporary, that families help families. But generosity has a shape, it has edges, and Vanessa kept pushing past every edge I set, usually without seeming to notice she'd done it, which somehow made it worse. By the 3rd month I was doing the grocery shopping, not helping with it, doing it, from a list she texted me every Sunday night with items circled twice if she considered them urgent. I was doing the school pickup for Emma's preschool 3 days a week because Vanessa had pregnancy fatigue and Marcus was on job sites until dark. I was doing dishes after dinner while Vanessa scrolled her phone on my couch in my living room, under the lamp Carol used to read beside every night before bed. And I was doing it all without so much as a thank you, because somewhere in those 3 months, thank you had quietly disappeared from Vanessa's vocabulary when she spoke to me. It had been replaced by instructions, reminders, corrections. "Dad, you used the wrong detergent again. Emma's got sensitive skin." I am not Dad to Vanessa. I have never once heard her call Marcus's actual father, Dad, with anything but a flat, functional tone, like she was addressing an appliance that occasionally malfunctioned. The final piece slid into place on a rainy Thursday in October, 6 weeks ago, the day of the laundry basket. I'd spent the morning at Carol's grave. I go every Thursday, have for 3 years, sit on the little stone bench I bought and tell her about the week, and I came home to find Vanessa had rearranged my kitchen while I was out. Not helped organize it, rearranged it. My pots in cabinets that had held them for 22 years, moved to make room for a bassinet she wanted to prep near the stove for warmth, she said, though the room had a working thermostat. My spice rack, alphabetized by Carol's own hand, dumped into a drawer. The framed photo of Carol and me on our wedding day, which had sat on the windowsill above the sink since the day we moved in, relocated to a shelf in the hallway to make room for a coffee maker. I stood in my own kitchen holding a grocery bag, staring at the empty windowsill, and something in my chest went very quiet and very still. That's when Vanessa walked in, 7 months pregnant, phone in one hand, and held out the laundry basket. "These need to be folded before dinner." I said the thing about golf. I walked out to my truck. I sat in the driver's seat in my own driveway for 20 minutes without turning the key, and I thought about Carol, and I thought about the man I used to be before grief made me quiet and quiet made me easy to overlook, and I thought, enough. I want to be clear about something, because I've turned this over in my head 100 times since, lying awake at 2 a.m. in the guest room I now occupy in my own house, having given up my primary bedroom to Marcus and Vanessa because the master bath has the tub Emma needs for her eczema treatments. I don't hate Vanessa. I don't think she's an evil person. I think she is a young, overwhelmed, hormonal, exhausted woman who found herself in someone else's house and decided, consciously or not, that the way to survive that was to make it feel like hers. I understand the impulse even as I resent everything it cost me. But understanding doesn't pay the bill, and by God, there was a bill. I didn't say anything to Marcus at first. That was my mistake, and I own it. I told myself I was keeping the peace, that Marcus had enough on his plate with the failing contracts, that raising this now would just add strain to a marriage that already seemed to run on fumes and gritted teeth. So I swallowed it. I folded the towels in thirds. I moved the pots back to the cabinets quietly at night, so nobody would notice and start a fight about it. I put the wedding photo back on the windowsill 3 times before I finally gave up and just let it live in the hallway, because fighting about a photograph felt small and pathetic next to everything else piling up. What finally broke it wasn't the chores, it was Emma. My granddaughter is 4 years old, and she's the best thing to happen to this house since Carol filled it with sunflowers. She has Carol's exact laugh. I didn't know that was possible, genetics skipping a generation like that, but it happened, and every time Emma laughs I feel my wife in the room with me. Emma had started calling our Thursday afternoons grandpa time, when I'd pick her up from preschool, and we'd stop at the little park by the library before dinner, feed the ducks, and I'd tell her stories about her grandmother. 6 weeks ago, on a Thursday, Vanessa told me grandpa time was over. She's overstimulated when she gets home. Vanessa said, not looking up from her phone. The ducks, the park, all that sugar from the vending machine, she's a mess by bedtime. I need her on a schedule. Straight home, straight to nap. I don't give her sugar, I said. We feed the ducks bread. Whatever it is, it's not working for us. Just bring her home. Us, not her, not Emma. Us meaning Vanessa's schedule, Vanessa's preferences, Vanessa's authority over a routine that had nothing to do with her because she wasn't there for it. And I realized, standing in that kitchen with my 4-year-old granddaughter's joy being filed away like an inconvenient expense report, that I had let this go too far. I had let a woman half my age turn me into hired help in a house I owned outright, and I had let her start dictating the terms of my relationship with my own grandchild, and I had done nothing but fold towels and move pots back at night like a ghost too polite to haunt properly. That night after Emma was in bed, I asked Marcus to sit down with me on the back porch, just the two of us. October air, cold enough to need jackets, the kind of night Carol used to love because she said the cold made the stars look sharper. I need to say some things, I told him, and I need you to actually hear them, not just wait for your turn to defend her. Marcus is a good man. I raised him to be a good man, and mostly I succeeded, though grief and stress have a way of making even good men go quiet and conflict avoidant, and my son had become an expert at looking the other way when it came to his wife. He nodded, arms crossed, jaw tight, bracing. I laid it out, not with anger. I'd promised myself that sitting in the truck weeks earlier, but with the flat, itemized clarity of a man who used to run a business and knew how to present a case. The grocery runs, the pickups, the dishes every night, the wedding photo, the pots, the laundry basket. Grandpa time taken away without a conversation, like I was staff being reassigned rather than a father whose house this was. This is my home, I said. I built a life in it with your mother. I opened the door to you and Vanessa and the kids because that's what family does, and I would do it again tomorrow if you needed it. But somewhere along the way, I stopped being your father in this house and started being your unpaid employee, and I need that to end. Tonight. Marcus was quiet for a long time. Long enough that I thought maybe I'd miscalculated, maybe he'd get defensive, tell me I was overreacting, tell me Vanessa was pregnant and exhausted, and I needed to have more patience. Part of me braced for it. Instead, he put his face in his hands. I know, he said, muffled. I've known for weeks. I didn't know how to fix it without it turning into World War III. She's not sleeping, Dad. The baby's due in 8 weeks and she's terrified about money and she's taking it out on the house because the house is the one thing she feels like she can control right now. That's not an excuse. I know it's not an excuse. I didn't want to add fuel to it. I understand that she's struggling, I said. I do, but her struggling doesn't give her the right to erase your mother from the kitchen windowsill. It doesn't give her the right to take away the one afternoon a week I get with my granddaughter, and it sure as hell doesn't give her the right to hand me a laundry basket like I'm the help. Marcus flinched at that last part, and I could tell it landed somewhere real. I'll talk to her, he said. No, I said, we'll talk to her, together, tomorrow, because if it comes from just you, she'll think you and I ganged up on her behind her back, and if it comes from just me, she'll think I'm the bitter old man who never wanted them here in the first place. It needs to come from both of us as a united front, or it won't stick. The conversation the next evening was not comfortable. Vanessa cried, which I expected, and which I let happen without rushing to comfort her or take it back, because I had learned over 68 years that some tears are genuine grief and some tears are a reflex built to end uncomfortable conversations before they finish, and I needed this one to finish. I told her, gently but without apology, that I loved having her and the kids in my home, that I was proud of the family she and Marcus were building, and that none of that changed the fact that I was still the head of this household and not a member of its staff. I told her the wedding photo was going back on the windowsill, and it was staying there. I told her the pots were staying where Carol put them 22 years ago, because that kitchen had a system that worked long before she arrived and would keep working long after. I told her grandpa time was not up for negotiation, that if she had concerns about Emma's schedule, we could absolutely talk about them together as the adults raising this child, but that talking about it meant a conversation, not a unilateral decree issued while I stood in my own kitchen holding groceries. And I told her this was the hardest part because I meant it kindly, and kindness and firmness don't always sit easy together, that I understood she was scared. New baby, tight money, a toddler, a husband stretched thin, living in someone else's house with someone else's rules. That's a lot for anyone to carry, let alone a woman 7 months pregnant, but fear doesn't get to reorganize someone else's life without asking. It doesn't get to hand a grown man a laundry basket like an order. If she needed help, real help, the kind family gives each other, all she ever had to do was ask. I would have said yes, I told her. I've been saying yes for 3 months. What I needed was for you to ask instead of assume. She didn't say much that night. Cried, apologized in the vague way people do when they're not entirely sure yet what they're apologizing for, went to bed early. I didn't expect a transformation overnight, and I didn't get one, but something shifted. It's been 6 weeks since that porch conversation. The wedding photo is back on the windowsill, and nobody has moved it since. The pots stayed where Carol put them. Grandpa time resumed the following Thursday, Ducks, Library Park, a story about the year Carol decided to grow sunflowers along the whole back fence and how the neighbors used to stop and take pictures. Emma laughed her grandmother's laugh so hard she got the hiccups, and I sat there on the park bench and let myself cry a little, quietly, the way you do when joy and grief show up holding hands. Vanessa still asks me for things. That hasn't changed, and honestly I don't want it to. We're a family sharing a house and families ask each other for things. But she asks now, would you mind grabbing eggs if you're headed out, instead of a list with hearts drawn on it like a summons. 2 weeks ago she knocked on the door of the guest room, my room, for now, and asked if I'd sit with her while she went through baby names, because Marcus was on a job site, and she said quietly that she'd missed having someone to talk to who wasn't exhausted or 4 years old. I said yes. We sat up till 11 going through names, and it was the first genuinely easy hour we'd spent together since she moved in. The baby is due in 2 weeks. A boy. They're naming him after Carol's maiden name for a middle name, which Marcus told me privately was Vanessa's idea, offered without being asked, and I'll admit that undid me a little when I heard it. I don't know exactly what happens when the new baby comes, when the house gets louder and smaller and more exhausted all over again. Boundaries, I've learned at 68 years old, are not a single conversation you have once and then coast on forever. They're something you keep tending, the way Carol tended those sunflowers, pulling weeds, checking the fence line, making sure nothing creeps back in and takes root where it doesn't belong. But I know this much, I am Daniel Whitfield. This is my house, built with my hands and my wife's love and 22 years of a marriage that ended too soon. I will open my door to my family as many times as they need it, for as long as they need it, because that is what love does. But I will not fold the laundry of anyone who hands me a basket like I'm the maid. Not in my own kitchen, not ever again.